Why is meatloaf always portrayed as disgusting in TV shows? I think it's easy to make bad meatloaf by overcooking it. Also, meatloaf is a pretty vulgar and visually descriptive name for a food which is comical. It doesn't look visually appealing on the screen, and it is seen as a homey and unsophisticated meal. Sounds like you aren't one of my mom's children then. Lucky for you. When I was a kid, I didn't like my parents' meatloaf. It was full of peppers and onions and topped with tomato sauce. Things I'm fine with now, but just did not appeal to the palate of a child. Cooked peppers and onions were absolutely disgusting to me then. It's also just, visually, not a beautiful dish. Does anyone actually hate meatloaf? Oh me. I hate meatloaf, and I've never had a good one, ever. I'm 63 and have lived in 7 different states and many towns within those states. I'd say that if that many cooks in that many different places over that many years can't produce a decent meatloaf, then no such thing exists. I know people who I think are good cooks who have fed me horrible meatloaf. The problem isn't the cooks, it's the food itself. I know some people like it. Our son doesn't, late my husband did, but our daughter and I don't. There are so many other ways to fix that meat where it would taste good. I like a good meatloaf. I mean, it's just ground beef, which I love. I'm just not a fan of how people put ketchup on top. Maybe it's a southern US thing? I don't know. I never had meatloaf. I'm Hispanic, and 99 of my friends are too, here in Miami, until I made a for real legit American friend and his grandma had made some meatloaf, and I thought it was pretty great lol. Because some of it is just awful. My mother's ground beef, chopped onions and bell peppers, salt and pepper, shaped into a mound was inedible. Mine OTOH is fantastic, at least according to my son and grandkids. I hated my mom's meatloaf. Not sure I've ever tried anyone else's. I'm not sure what would make it more appealing than any other meat dish. If I'm going to eat ground beef, it's so much better just cooked in a nice sauce. Meatloaf tends to be dry. Presumably if done well with a nice sauce it would be fine, but if still prefer something else. Went back to visit my mom yesterday and she made her meatloaf. One of my favorite things she makes. I had it in a restaurant once and it was pretty bad, so the recipe can vary heavily. It's basically meatball bread. I read once that it was normal for meatloaf to be used as a way to clear out leftovers, so you got a bunch of random questionable vegetables and other stuff in it. Meatloaf meatloaf double beetloaf. I hate meatloaf. I watched a movie about some poor people recently and they were having noodles and hot dogs for dinner. Now that's how you make sure the audience knows it's a shitty meal. I don't get it either, always been a favorite, but I could see if it was a staple meal, it would be easy to get tired of, hypothetically. Meatloaf tastes like gray. I never got excited about it as a kid, but the recipe I make from time to time now as an adult is delicious. Because Bob has bitch tits. I've had some pretty bad meatloaf, but that's like the frozen pre-prepared stuff. The homemade meatloaf I've had and made has always been delicious. Don't let your meatloaf